Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. Y'all, I feel great because yesterday I finally got my side shave cleaned up. It has been so long and grown out, and they put layers in my hair, and it's been a while since I had a haircut, so I feel much better now that that's out of the way. Alright, so today's video we're going to be doing my reading wrap-up, and it's kind of, I didn't do a January one or a February one, so I'm kind of combining both of those months and saying it's a Wintery reading wrap-up, and we're going to just go over all the books that I read over January and February. So if that sounds fun to you, just keep on watching. Okay, so the first book that I finished in January is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This is the 5th Harry Potter book. I have never read the Harry Potter books until I finished it this year, and I had been slowly going through them, and I was actually listening to them on audiobook, which I highly recommend because the narrator is amazing and it was so much fun to listen to. And Professor McGonagall is an absolute boss, especially in this book. Harry kind of annoyed me. He was pretty dumb. He made a lot of poor choices. He was pretty hateful, but you know, he's got a lot on his shoulders. Gotta cut him some slack. But overall, I really enjoyed this. This was a 5 out of 5 stars for me, which I'm sure every Harry Potter book will be. But, so that was the first one. The second one I read, which is also one of those things that's obviously very behind everyone else, was Caraval. Y'all, I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was, well actually, no. I will say I really liked this book. I had a lot of fun with it. It was very magical. Scarlet was probably somebody that I would consider myself to be. She was very cautious. She wanted to do the right thing. She wanted to be responsible. But going into the world of Caraval was so magical. Legend, I was just absolutely enamored by Legend. When they first started talking about him, I thought his character was so interesting. I really wanted to know what was real, what wasn't real. I really had a good time with this book, and I know some people don't like it, and I know I'm also behind in all of these books because I'm just now reading all these books that everybody else read, but this was so much fun. I had such a good time with it. I loved the magic in this, and I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But overall, it was super enjoyable, and I would continue, and I did continue. The next book that I read in January, and I'm going to have to put a picture up here, was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And that, oh, I didn't even say, Garber wrote Caraval, J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. Sorry if I didn't mention that. By Matt Haig. So, The Midnight Library. I listened to it on audiobook through Libby, and I would say that I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it. But I did find it kind of boring at times, and just the premise of the book was very character-driven and very, like, development of that character-driven. So it was a really good premise. The message was amazing. It talks a lot about suicide and about kind of, like, taking control of your own situations. And I love that as a mental health advocate and a mental health worker. I loved the message of that book. So for that reason alone, I think it's worth reading. But the style of the book, the kind of book that it is, it's not something that I pick up normally. I pick up fantasy. I pick up things to escape, not to think about real life. So that's not the book's fault that I'm like that. But the book in itself was very good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked the morals of this book and the message of it. And overall, it was enjoyable, but there were a couple parts where I was kind of bored. The next book I read was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the 6th installment of the Harry Potter series. So I enjoyed this one quite a bit. My favorite is the 3rd one, Prisoner of Azkaban. I enjoyed this much more than I thought I would because I heard it was kind of boring from some people, like talking about different aspects of it. I don't know why it's boring. This was so fascinating to me. I loved learning more about Voldemort and his backstory because I feel like that's something that wasn't really talked about in the movies. And I just loved the different character development in this. And obviously the end was really sad. But I also had a lot of respect for Snape in this, even though I know he's painted as the bad guy. I just thought it was really good. The next one I read was The One. I think it's by John Mars. I really didn't know what to expect with this book, and I listened to it on audiobook, and I just kind of went into it like, the premise sounds interesting, like there's no, or what if you found the one person for you? But it was kind of ominous, like things could go wrong. And you're following, I think, 5 different perspectives. And to be honest, the only one I was really invested in was Christopher, because I wanted to know how his mind worked. Because he, I don't want to spoil anything, but he has some dark stuff going on. And so his perspective was incredibly interesting to me. So I feel like I read the whole book just to find out how his storyline ended. And the rest of the perspectives I didn't really care about that much. So because of that, at 3 out of 5 stars. So I liked Christopher's perspective, but the rest of it was kind of okay. Overall, the premise is interesting. The next book that I read was City of Lost Souls, because I'm also going through the Mortal Instruments. I'm on the last one right now. Well, I'm not on it. I need to start it. You know what I mean? So I read this one. Everyone's gonna think I'm absolutely crazy. Sebastian is my favorite character. I think he's the most dynamic. I think he's the most interesting. There's probably a theme. I think I just like dark characters, because he's not even like morally gray. He's pretty dark. But I think he's the best character in this series, because I am most invested in finding out what happens to him and what's going on with his life and his inner workings, that I don't care that much about the other characters. I like Jace, I do. And Claire is okay. Claire can be kind of stupid. But some of the side characters I just really don't care about. But Sebastian, so interesting to me. Is it bad that he's my favorite character / most intriguing character? Probably. Oh gosh. So I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, because I did like this one a lot more than the others. The first one I think is my favorite, and then this one. The next book that I finished in January was The Guest List. I also listened to this with Libby from my library, and I had been on the wait list for like 6 months to get this dang thing. And it was just something that I knew it was popular. It was free. It was on Libby. I thought, why not? Let's give it a shot. It's not my usual genre, so I wanted to kind of read outside my comfort zone. It's like a mystery thriller and kind of like a whodunit type thing. And also it just like unfolds as you go in these different dynamics and interpersonal relationships between all the people at this wedding party. And then there's a murder and you're trying to figure out what happened. Overall, I think I enjoyed this book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was kind of fun. It wasn't very scary, which for me is a plus. I don't like horror or really scary things because I get real bad nightmares. So that's not my jam. So because it wasn't that scary, I think that's a downside for some people. But for me, that was a good thing because I wasn't like afraid to listen to it before I was going to go to bed or something like that. But it was dark, but it was kind of fun to just see how the characters developed. In this one, I wouldn't say I ever had a favorite character because usually I feel like I can pick out somebody that I relate to or that I enjoyed more. But in this one, it was just kind of interesting to see them all. But none that I was super attached to, and I kind of didn't care who died at the end, which is probably awful of me. But it definitely kept me hooked and wanted to know what happened, and I wanted to continue listening to it. So the last book that I finished in January was Legendary by Stephanie Garber. Like I told you, I really enjoyed Caraval. This one, when I first started reading it, because when I read Caraval, I liked it a lot. But I was like, how is this story going to continue? And then I picked this up, and it picks up right where the other one ends. And I was going through it, and I was like, where is this going? But the more that the story unfolded, I found myself getting like really intrigued. And then the obsession bloomed, and I absolutely love this series now. It's one of my favorites. I love Stephanie Garber's writing. I'm probably going to read everything she ever does now because this was so much fun to see. I don't want to ruin anything, but like Jax and the different characters that come out in this, I was like, what is going to happen? And I really enjoyed it. And I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I believe I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So now we're getting into the books that I finished in February. So, moment of silence. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I finished the Harry Potter series finally. It was great. It was so much fun. I listened to all of them, which I highly recommend. It was great. Great ending. I loved learning more about this world. The Battle of Hogwarts is absolutely freaking amazing, and I wish they had done that in the movies, so you need to read this if you haven't. And I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, of course. The next one I finished in February was Finale by Stephanie Garber. It was beautiful. It was amazing. Legend is the man. I loved it. I can't wait to read more of her writing. There's really not much to say about it. I just had so much fun with this series that I would absolutely read it again if I could, like freshly. And I'm like trying to get everybody to read it that hasn't read it. And if you've read this, please talk to me, because I feel like I haven't been able to talk to anybody about this series, and I had such a good time with it. Legend is my favorite. Super amazing. I know everybody loves Jax, but Legend is the man. So yeah, this was just super fun to read. The next one I finished in February is A Court of Thorns and Roses. So this was my first time reading this. I'm obviously behind on a lot of these series that are really popular. I knew this was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I knew it was more like steamy, if you will. And honestly, that did not make me excited to pick it up. And I was kind of worried that I wouldn't like it, that it would be like really disappointing for me. But the rest of the world building and the magic and like the different creatures and everything that came out in this world, that's what really intrigued me. The fairies, like some of the fae, have different powers and abilities. I thought that was really cool. I like the different elements of like the seasons and day and night and how that incorporates into all of this culture and these creatures. And some of them have bat wings. I think that is the coolest thing. If I was a fae and I was a fairy, I would want bat wings. I love bats, but I just think that's so cool. So really, those are the things that struck me about this and made me want to continue to see what happened. Because this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. You know, you kind of know how that works. You kind of know how that ends. But the world is what kept me going to want to read the second one. So I think I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Not my favorite, but obviously it was enough for me to want to continue. So it was good. Enjoyable. And the last book that I finished in January was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. Oh gosh, I haven't said any of the authors' names. Anyway, you know these books. I'm starting the Grisha trilogy for the first time. I really like the Darkling. I know, I'm a terrible person probably. I think he's so cool. I think Elena makes some poor decisions sometimes, but she's a kid, I gotta cut her some slack. I have been listening to the audiobooks for these because I think they do the Darkling's voice perfectly. He's like calm and soft but powerful, and I love his voice in the audiobooks. I think it's amazing. So if you've never read or if you've never listened to them, I would recommend listening to them just for the narrator doing the impression of the Darkling, because it was super fun. All right, everyone, those are all of the books that I read in January and February. If you've read any of those books and you want to talk to me about it, please do. I feel like not enough people can talk to me about these books. And if you want to see any of my other content, I will be uploading probably once a week. Trying to figure out my uploading schedule right now because I'm kind of new into this. But I hope you had a good time. And if you want to comment below your favorite series that I can look into checking out, or your favorite characters from any of the series that I mentioned, that would be great. See you next time.